I'm going to talk to you today about how we introduced a wellbeing and resilience procedure, and that is not a stress management procedure by any other name. So I'll say that from the outset. I'm clearly a good BITC disciple because I'm using the word resilience and not stress. Okay, so why do we not want to use the word stress? Stress, I think, is a term that's used far too often amongst our staff. Oh, I'm stressed. Oh, I can't cope. When in fact it's just a piece of work they've got to do at that time. The other end of the scale are people who are seriously stressed and will be off work for a long time. So we wanted to not have that word stress there to drop it in people's minds and badge something that it really wasn't. So we use the term wellbeing and resilience, which I think is a far more positive term. Okay. So what is wellbeing? Different things to different people. It could be job security, a big issue for us in the public sector at the moment. It could be a good family life, good work-life balance, enough income, challenge, training, development. It could be a whole range of things. So our policy or procedure is fluid so that we can add things and subtract things depending on how people and what their needs are. So resilience is giving people the skills to actually face the day-to-day things that happen to them, not just at work, but also at home. So, okay, yeah, in the public sector, we're having a lot of change at the moment. We reorganise each year. We need to get people up to the point where change is part and parcel of it, and they have to get used to it and deal with it in the way that best suits them. But additionally, we have a lot of absence as a result of things that are happening at home, divorce, bereavement, children flying the nest. So we're trying to equip our staff with the skills to deal with anything that faces them in life. So who's responsible for managing wellbeing and resilience? I think it's the individual and the manager. I would like to big up HR at this point, but I think HR is for life and not just for crises. So don't come to us when something's a big issue. We should be working with the managers all along so we know where the hotspots are, where they're going to need some support. So the individual, they're the person who can say, I can't cope with this, I don't understand this, I need some more training, or I've got an issue at home, can I start working a little bit more flexibly for a while? The manager is the person who knows that individual. HR doesn't, occupational health doesn't, the next level line manager doesn't. So if you want the most reasonable and understanding agreement to come up, it's got to be between the two individuals who are operating together. But there are other people who can help. Colleagues, you can see if someone's starting to be late, they're coming in a bit dishevelled, their performance isn't as good as it was. They're the people who can say, I'm a little bit worried about Mary, and then you can start to look at it. And there's, of course, HR. We're there to make sure the procedure's being implemented, to offer advice and support. But at the college, we have HR link workers, so they're assigned to each school, and they can work with the managers all the time, so they can preempt things that are coming up. We're very lucky now to have an occupational health service on site, so we can use them for drop-ins as well as for health surveillance, which has been a really big bonus for us. And we've got a nice, strong health and safety team all on site. So, a flowchart that you can't see at the back, which is always really irritating, I know, but this is just to illustrate to you that it's a process. So the employee can report an issue, the manager can identify an issue, or a colleague can suspect an issue with a colleague. So that would come into the manager, and a meeting is arranged with the manager and the employee. Nobody else, no union rep, no HR, just the two individuals. The manager at that point should think, oh, do I need occupational health support here, or is it fairly straightforward? If it's an easy resolution, yep, you can start a little bit later, or you could start finishing early, things like that. The manager and the employee can work together to make it happen. Some things are a bit more complicated, so they might need some assistance, at which point the manager would speak to HR and say, can I just check that if I do this, it's going to be fair, it's not going to disadvantage anybody else, etc. And most importantly, the manager then reports back to the employee what's happening. As in HR, we like bits of paper, we like records, whether they're electronic or in the file. It's important to document what's been said, not only because the HSE might come sniffing later on, or you might end up in the employment tribunal, but should there be a change of management or somebody needs to go back and check what was said, it's there and it's obvious. So the manager and the employee implement actions, and then most importantly, they review the effectiveness because if it isn't working, you've got to try something else, otherwise you might lose that member of staff. So, making it work. We introduced the procedure, but we felt it's really important to actually get people to understand how they're going to implement it. So we had training on the procedure for all the managers. We have early intervention. So if somebody reports in sickness with stress, anxiety or depression as a reason, we can refer them to occupational health straight away. I think if you leave somebody and you don't contact them, whether it's the manager or a colleague or HR, you just leave them, it's very hard for them to come back to work. And the first 4 weeks is like a golden window to get them back into work, and if not, it's a whole sight harder. And then we've been introducing resilience training for staff that's provided by our occupational health team, which gives them the skills to deal with things that face them. It's quite straightforward. It's a half-hour session in lunch breaks. That isn't all they get for lunch, I have to say. They are then allowed to have a lunch break on top of that, but it's in the middle of the day. And that's going down quite well. So we're trying to think how we can move that along and have some advanced resilience training. Like I say, documenting actions is really, really important, and reviewing them to make sure they work. And also, you don't want to have a pattern in place indefinitely if you don't need it anymore. If the flexible working arrangement isn't meeting the needs of the business, it needs to be reviewed. For us at the college, we continue to review the cases each week that we've got of long-term sickness and sickness down to stress, anxiety and depression. And that's reported back to the principalship each week. So we have to be able to demonstrate that things are moving along and that there's been progress made. We can't just leave those cases with no action. And that's all part of the monitoring, as well as the normal workforce performance monitoring that goes on. So in addition to the hard procedural side of things, we have a range of wellbeing initiatives which were pretty important for us when we went for the BITC award. We're lucky in that we can offer all our members of staff corporate membership of Simply Health. It costs £1 a week per member of staff, and they're allowed to get cash back for dental, optical, various therapies and things like that, as well as paying for on-site health checks that we can arrange, that we do like 2 or 3 times a year. We have an on-site gym, and we're lucky again that we have a sickness reporting service that goes to a nurse in a call centre and not to a colleague or a manager. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, because if you're not genuinely sick, you don't really want to speak to a nurse. So it's helped us to reduce our short-term absence of people who maybe would have thrown a sickie in the past. But it also gives the genuine people the steer whether they need to go to their GP, how many days they're likely to be off, that kind of thing. So that's really useful for us. Simply Health provides us 24/7 counselling on the phone and face-to-face counselling for staff. On site, we run exercise classes such as yoga and Pilates and Zumbas on the blocks, I'm told. We have running club, and the latest thing that a member of staff wants to run is hula hooping, which is very spatially difficult, I think. We're in the midst of our free flu vaccination programme at the moment, and I've got the scar to prove it. We have wellbeing fairs, normally just before Christmas or just after, to give people a bit of a boost. Once a month, our occupational health team do drop-in surgeries, so staff can go along and just ask for advice on anything, and we don't get to have any feedback on that. And of course, we do the usual things like the cycle to work and the bicycle users group, and we have a range of staff discounts across Norwich. So, what's it done for us? Our sickness absence in the last 3 years has reduced by 18.9%, which with a staff of over 1,000 is pretty phenomenal in terms of cost. We have a consistent approach to absence management, which is a bit of a triangle with the DHS reporting system to the nurse, Simply Health membership that enables them to get therapies a lot quicker, and the Bradford factor for monitoring sickness. All staff and managers are clear of their responsibilities, so people know what to do when something arises instead of floundering around and thinking, oh, where do I go now? We've had no ill health retirements or ill health terminations on the grounds of stress or depression in the last 4 years. Staff engagement's improved the wellbeing offer, because not only can they take part in things, they can suggest things we can add. And the range of wellbeing initiatives helps us to attract people to come and work for us. At the moment, we have the final salary pension, which is maybe not going to be there forever, so we have to think of other ways of enticing people into the public sector. So, in summary, Be clear on your responsibilities, particularly the individual. They need to understand how key they are. We don't have magic wands. We can't just make everything okay. They need to tell us what they're going to do as well as how we can help them. Have a clear procedure and apply it consistently. Act fast if you see something going wrong. Keep appropriate records. Monitor workforce performance data regularly to ensure that it's effective and to make sure that your sickness absence is on the downward trend. And think of the terminology used. Stress isn't always stress, so think holistically, well-being and resilience instead. Thank you very much.